Okay, here I am hanging out with Ivan Daikoku, who is on Maui.
That's correct.
Where on Maui you say?
Makawao. I
O-
reside in Makawao.
y- My geography on Maui is not too strong. How far, do you know where Greg Friel is?
He resides in Makawao also. We're
Okay.
close to central, uh, on the slopes of Haleakala, but a low elevation. I want to say between 1,000 and maybe 1,500. That's just a guess,
Yeah.
you
And then
know.
before we came on, like maybe not even 15, 20 minutes ago, Melissa Natividad called me.
Oh, yes, yes. Did you get an interview with her?
Not yet. She's claiming she's a little on the shy side. So, but I'll get her at the reunion if
Well,
nothing else. So,
okay. Well, I'm just thinking that um who wants to know about me? My goodness. But when the thing that really sold me was seeing an old buddy, Kirk Paulson,
you okay? Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and then watching all the videos of the classmates that, I had a pretty close relationship with, like Lorelei, who's originally from Maui,
yeah.
Michael Crab, So it was really good. And I don't know if I'm still up in the air. My son just graduated from Kamehameha, the Maui campus, and we're thinking about doing a father-son trip up in the Pacific Northwest. We want to go to Yellowstone,
All right, on. Yeah, the Black
so
Hills
we'll
maybe
see.
while you're in that area.
Pardon me?
The Black Hills while you're in that general area.
We've already been to Mount Rushmore and then saw Sitting Bull, that area in South Dakota.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we've done that, but we've never been to Glacial National Park or Yellowstone. And we want to go there before it gets too cold, you know.
Yeah. You got some time.
Yeah, yeah.
I have
Well,
a cousin that lives in Libby, Montana, which is right at the edge of the Glacier National Park.
yeah, I love my traveling, especially since I retired.
Yeah. Yesterday I did
You
one
know.
of these with Sean Holt. You remember Sean Holt?
Yes, yes, I do.
And he's in
He's like my
Billings,
son.
Montana.
Oh, wow. My son, if you see a picture, he's full on Holly, blonde hair and all, blonde hair
Oh,
and all. You know,
well, hey, you know, it all works. Look at
I,
Kirk. Look at Kirk
yeah,
Paulson.
right, right. And Kikoa also.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Look, I went to their house in Haleiwa for a weekend, and he came to my house, and we did a couple of um, outings where we went to Maui, and same with, like, I don't know why I used to hang out with the boarders mostly. I was always working at school. I wasn't much of a social type of person because after school I would just have to work at the supermarket.
Where did
But
you live on Oahu?
Kailua.
Oh, okay.
So people that I can recall that lived in Kailua, when at least when I was there, was Michael Young. You remember Chris Nee, who got kicked out? He was my dive partner. Zell Kuahini, Walter Rosehill,
Yeah.
Harold
You know,
Stevenson.
small world in 23 when we did the class reunion train thing.
Yes, yes.
We went to go eat at a Korean restaurant as a class
Okay, wait, wait,
in
wait, wait. You got your meat, June.
they didn't have it. They didn't have it.
I, I feel for you, man. But I learned it's only a Hawaii thing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't till I came up here and embarrassed myself in about three or four Korean restaurants.
No,
So,
no, and I've been to Korea too.
oh, okay. And you didn't see it, but you didn't miss it, huh?
I didn't see it. I love my Korean food. I love food, period. That's one of the things when I travel. I always want to experience the culture, and food is part of the culture, right?
Yeah. So anyway, as a
You
class,
know,
we're
but
in this random Korean restaurant.
uh-huh.
Greg Nee walks in, Chris's older brother,
Oh, yes, yes.
and his wife
He was
was my blood uncle's stepdaughter.
see, we're
I
all
mean,
connected, man.
yeah. I
We're all
mean, talk about
connected.
being tripped out, man. I couldn't. I had to rub my eyes several times, and but I had to be told. I didn't really recognize Greg because I didn't know him that well in high school to remember his face.
Well,
But
I think when we were freshmen, he was a junior, if I'm not mistaken, but he was a regular in the forest.
uh,
You know,
they had their population, and then from what I hear, I haven't seen a lot of the changes. There is no forest, basically.
oh, definitely not. The only reunion I went to was the 20th, and that was all gone already. They had already erected a back road. There's the old tennis courts are all gone.
Oh wow.
Even like where our chow hall was, I forget what's there now. You know where Bishop Hall is.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not where the chow hall is, you
Oh
know.
man.
So a lot of changes, and then below our auditorium, there's like a big area there. That's where the school store is, you know.
I'm
And then
probably gonna
next,
get so lost because I'm
oh
boarding. I mean,
yeah,
I'm gonna stay in the dorms when I go reunion.
right, right. You were mentioning like my family just left yesterday, so I've been really busy doing the Haleakala sunrise, seeing Hana, paying our respects to Lahaina and everything. But I'm glad they're gone.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know, but it's been quite a ride, boys, so far. I mean, you know, Pawahi and Charles Reed Bishop, they brought us all together where our lives all intersected, right? Approximately 50 years ago. And we've all diverged in different directions and everything, but somehow we still have this bond, which I think is so awesome.
Yeah. What
You
grade
know,
did you start Kamehameha?
I'll give you a guess. What do you think?
Seventh grade?
No, the most common. Everyone is the ninth. So was I.
Okay. And it really
But
shouldn't be the most common. So I think it's just the ones I'm picking at random.
yeah. Oh, I see. No, I
Because
was not.
seventh grade, big numbers came in seventh grade.
Well, during our time, if I'm not mistaken, they had like quotas based on where you lived and so forth. And
Oh, okay.
the times to get in were seventh and ninth. Uh, that's when there was a big push. I don't know if they had more students or so forth. But my parents were bugging me from fourth grade when we came back from the mainland. And I said, no, I didn't want to go. I just said no. So finally, eighth grade, I said, I'll take the test. Don't bug me no more. And, I got in. So, you know,
Yeah.
no regrets, no regrets.
So where did you go kindergarten to eight?
So kindergarten through second grade was on the island of Kauai. We lived in Hanapepe Heights, which is close to LA.
Okay.
And then in the third grade, my dad was in the full-time Air National Guard. He had to take some long-term training, and it was in Mississippi. So I spent fourth grade on the mainland, and then fifth grade uh, and sixth grade was at Kainalo Elementary. An intermediate, which they call middle school here, seventh and eighth grade was at Kalaheo. If I stayed
Oh,
there, I believe I would have been part of the first graduating high school of Kalaheo. They were in that transition phase,
yeah, because I
you
remember
know.
when it opened up. So that was one of the newer, not newest, but maybe newer ones. Yeah.
Right, right.
Okay.
Because that was primarily like the Marine base military. If not, everyone had to either go to Castle or Kailua, you know, as far as
Yeah.
public school.
Okay. My alarm's going off, Ivan. You know why? To
Why?
re, to
I
re,
took too much of your time.
no, to remind me to ask you what UTC stands
Oh,
for.
uh, well, I don't know if you retired or that I retired as the air traffic controller with the FAA
Oh,
and
okay.
time our fellow aviators like Dave Valenti, Kevin, even Kalani, anyone who's a private pilot on up, all time is based on UTC or which is Coordinated Universal Time or Zulu time. And wherever you are in the world, it's the same time. You know, it's just a different day. And it's GMT is another one for Greenwich Mean Time. And that bisects like some town in England. And the opposite side of the globe, it's the international dateline, you
Oh,
know.
oh, getting
So,
free
you know, it's the
education here too.
it's no, it's a north-south line that goes between the poles, you know, basically imaginary, you know, whereas the equator is a east-west line, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, and basically in lat long, everything is west or east or north or south of the equator. So
Okay,
that's
so
how we get
Hawaii is
positioning.
2 hours later than this UTC.
Actually, it's 10 hours ahead. So as an example, 8 o'clock local time here in Hawaii would be 1800 Zulu. And at 2 o'clock, it would be Hawaii time. It would be 0000 Zulu. And at midnight local time here, it would be 1000, you know. So it can be confusing. That's how come they standardize everything. It's even like in air traffic control, believe it or not, they're mandated worldwide. It's all in English,
Huh.
you know. So the pilots are talking to controllers in English. I mean, I'm sure I never had the opportunity to fly in Europe, um, but I'm sure they speak, you know, whatever the language, German, French, or whatever, you know. But the main actual control instructions and so forth are all done in English.
How long were you in air traffic controller?
23 years and some change.
Wow.
You have to be hired by your 30th birthday. We have a mandatory retirement age of 56, but the earliest you can retire, full retirement, not medical or anything like that, is 20 years and age 50. So at 51, when I discovered I'm going to be a father, I can't believe that. Um, I decided I'm going to have to work for the rest of my life. So I was eligible for retirement. So I retired from the federal service. And believe it or not, I was commissioned as a police officer with the Maui Police Department. And that was a big time learning experience. And the only reason why I chose that was because minimum age 50, you only got to work 5 years. And then I could double dip, right? I'd get a federal and a county pension, you know.
Wow.
That's what the plan was.
After just 5 years as a police officer.
Yes, yes. And I was actually commissioned, so that was pretty neat. But you know, going through the training process, I got injured, so I couldn't fully complete the training. So I had to quit or resign. And then as far as jobs, since we're talking about jobs, then I found the best job of my life. It was still in aviation, but it was the pay was shitty, but I worked at Hawaiian, you
Huh.
know. And I
Yeah.
feel blessed because I was able to work the whole gambit. A lot of people they only work counters, but I got to work inter-island gates or domestic gates to the mainland. And people don't realize it, but baggage can be very, very challenging. So I got into the baggage aspect of it too, and I worked there for 7 years. So I
Okay.
haven't I haven't worked since 2017.
Okay. Let's line things up so the picture's a little clearer. Let's see how you got there. We're juniors and seniors in high school. What's your
Uh-huh.
plan after graduation at that point?
College. So I was at
Okay.
UH Manoa. The transition, like you, wasn't for me. I ended up at the center because when in our day, 18, you could drink, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was in the pool hall at Campus Center, shooting pool and drinking pitchers of beer most of the time. And after 2.5 years and many, many withdrawals, I mean, taking courses and withdrawing, right? You sign up for 15 credits, you end up with 12. So at least I could withdraw one. I couldn't see it happening. And by that time, I was working full time at the Time Supermarkets. And when was it? Sometime mid 80s when Reagan was president, he fired those controllers. All the controllers were fired. And that's what opened up the door for me. I always want my dream was to become a pilot, but I didn't have at that time that's just I couldn't meet medical. I didn't have 2020, you know. So I thought, well, let me try it. So at that time, you needed a college degree, which I didn't have, a private pilot certificate, which I didn't have, military controller time, which I didn't have. I the only thing that I could pursue at that time with the resources available and so forth. I was also married at that time, first marriage, was to join the Hawaii Air National Guard as an air traffic controller. And that's where I got my basic training.
Oh,
And
okay, okay.
that that led me back to basic to San Antone, where the Alamo is, right in Riverwalk. And you were there, right?
Yeah, from 81 to about 92, 93, something like that.
Yeah, basic was there. Then I went to tech school back to Mississippi again, Biloxi, Keesler Air Force Base. And that was quite some time. And then I spent almost 2 years in Japan working military traffic at Yokota Air Base. And once I got that certification, I came back to Hawaii and I applied because at that time they were really hurting. And within a couple of months, they sent me a letter saying if I was interested, and I said sure. So they paid per diem everything, including airfare, all the way to our academy in Oklahoma City. And
Uh-huh.
that was a pretty rigorous program. You go through these different modules or different levels, and it's all pass fail. So
Okay.
you go through certain phases, and after the beginning portion where you're learning about, separation rules, phraseology, weather, aircraft characteristics, all these basic things about it. And if you pass that academic portion, then the second phase of it, at least when I was there, you go into like mock labs where you're like in a en route environment or a tower environment, and you're actually using your phraseology. You're actually uh, keeping planes separated, you know. So after I was able to graduate there, pass, uh, people from Hawaii would were had the they were guaranteed. somewhere in the state, whereas everyone else, wherever they came from throughout the US, um, they would basically go where the need was, where the shortest staffing was. So my first duty station was here on Maui. I don't know
Huh.
if you remember Aloha 243, that was the convertible 737.
The one
Do
the
you
top
remember
ripped
that?
off. The
Yes, from Hilo. It was originally going Hilo to Honolulu and decompression and the top ripped off. So I was in the old tower, and when when all of us saw, I wasn't working they call it the local control position. I was working clearance delivery at that time, and our jaws all dropped when we saw that plane cross the threshold, the landing threshold, and bypass the tower. It was just amazing. And he didn't even need the full length of the runway. And we have a relatively short runway. At least our runway two was 7,000 feet, you know, whereas Honolulu is like over 10,000,
wow.
you know. So I got to see that, and I was at Maui for almost 3 years. My home was on Oahu, as well as my wife. So I commuted uh, every other week initially, and then as the pay increased, I was going weekly, and then finally I thought I would try to transfer over. So I transferred to Honolulu, spent most of my time there, and then they were really short on Maui, so they asked me if I would go back to Maui and work it's called TDY.
Okay,
So
yeah.
what was supposed to be a 3 month like deployment ended up being I ended up retiring from Maui, you know,
Huh.
and I retired because I'm going to be a dad at 51. So pretty much that's it, you know,
Now,
and
is that
then
your only son or only child?
that that I'm responsible for, yes, that
Okay.
I pay for, yes,
We're classifying him now. All right.
you know, it is. I'm pretty sure it is, but uh, I don't know. All this was because I attribute a lot of this, other than my parents, um, to Pawahi, man. And everybody says the same thing. I did okay in school, above average, but I know I could have done better. I wish I took full advantage. Um, I believe in my sophomore year, we had an instructor, Sonny Tanabe. Have you ever heard of him?
Name rings a
He's
bell. Kind of heavier set guy.
Yes, he's a well-known waterman,
Okay.
you know, but he gave a course to be scuba certified. And that and biking was my main thing. So I took it. So within a quarter, um, we had to wear, I'll never forget, we had to wear those freaking skivvies. You remember that? Talk about make ass. Anyway, I just flashed back on it. So I got certified in scuba diving. And then after my first divorce, and I tell my son this, for 10 years I was single, but within that time period, I got to travel the world. One of the benefits of ATC, air traffic control, is we'd have an opportunity to fly in the cockpit, or they call it the flight deck now. And you see things from a pilot perspective, so I got to go to the Galapagos Islands extensively throughout the Caribbean. Um, and from Guam, Guam is a hub for Micronesia. So Palau, Chuuk, Yap, I've been to all of those places, all diving.
Now, when you're
Uh,
flying in the cockpit, are you working or are you
oh
just,
no, no, no.
that's how you
They have
travel?
Yes, you have basic, well, not always. Sometimes they'll put, if there's seats, They'll offer you a seat in the back. I've flown a couple of times in first class, you know, but the each pilot has and each airline has their own specific rules. Like a lot of them, they have a sterile cockpit. You're not to say nothing uh, until you're above 10,000 feet. You know,
Wow.
that's the most crucial time of flight for an aircraft is departure and arrivals because you're so close to the ground. And if anything happens, your options are very limited, right? An
Oh,
engine
okay.
out, fire, whatever it is. Whereas if you're up at altitude, you have more options. You have more time, I should say, you know, unless it's something catastrophic like that TWA, you know.
Mm.
But I got to dive in Tahiti, Fiji. It was awesome. I
Wow.
really fell in love with that. And I would take pictures underwater. And then when I'm home, which is most of the time, right, and I'm single, I just take my little boat out and I'm diving for a taco or cole or whatever, lobster season, or just slow trolling for papio, that kind of stuff. Like what Norman does, Keela
Yeah.
does.
Uh-huh.
Very similar to what he does.
Okay. Wow.
You know, but it was all because of Tanabe, man. I mean, obviously, technology has changed, equipment has changed so much. Um, it's just amazing how far we've come, you
Oh
know.
yeah. I mean, but you think about too the resource. I mean, how many high schools taught scuba diving probably on Oahu, you know?
Right, right. Or even like I haven't caught up because this past week and a half I've been really busy, but I've been really enjoying your videos and catching up with all our classmates. Some of them I know, some of them I know of them, you know. Like so far I recognize everyone that's been on there, you know.
You're pretty good then, man, because I got foggy with the change in looks of a lot of our
Oh,
classmates. So
bruh, that's because we age.
yeah. Because
That's a
Sean Holt looks very, very different. Almost when he popped up on the screen, I almost thought was the wrong guy.
Oh, so basically what you're saying, he's like me, we didn't age well then.
Well, it happens across the board, so it's probably me, you
No,
know.
you still look the same. Kirk still looked the same. You could tell, age has crept up on him, but working at Hawaiian, I had the opportunity to see classmates from celebrities to classmates. That was the only time I saw classmates. They come and go as either an arriving passenger or a departing passenger. Like Melissa was like that. Um, Richard Kamano, Kahu, he was affiliated with Hawaiian, so we
Okay.
had an
Yeah, yeah.
an opening. So we got to talk a little while about that. Unfortunately, he passed. Even like Zell and I, we had our first job together working at Del Monte Cannery before ninth grade, and
Wow.
we carpooled. Either my dad would take us or my mom would take us, and Zell's parents would pick us up, you know.
Was that
It's
like
just,
summertime?
yeah, it was like the after eighth grade and before ninth grade, uh, it was an opportunity, you could work. You'd have to get that work permit because I was 15, right? And you could work at the cannery, Dole, or Del Monte at that time. But I applied at all the supermarkets in Kailua, about a half a dozen service stations because we still had like full serve, the ding ding when you drive over and fill up the gas, check the air, check the oil, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And
Eh,
cannery called, so I went. And then I had 2 weeks of summer vacation, and I only had 1 week before Kamehameha started. and then Times called supermarket, and if I wanted to work with them, and I thought part time, okay. So that was it. You know, after school, I only worked like 20, 32 hours max on like during holidays and so forth per week, you know. So
So
it was
now
always good.
I'm curious then, before you started at Kamehameha, you and
Uh-huh.
Zell's family were already in touch?
Well, uh, remember I told you about Chris and
Chris
my
Nee?
connection with, yeah, Chris Nee and the connection with the ocean about me and diving.
Uh-huh.
So there were three of us. We called ourselves the Three Amigos. It was Chris Nee, myself, and Zell's brother, Charles. And
Oh,
and
okay.
he tried, and we were, oh, well, Charles and myself, we were in Boy Scouts together, so that's how we met. And his dad was an assistant scoutmaster, so that's how we met.
Chris's dad.
And we, pardon me,
Chris's dad.
no, Zell's
Zell was
dad.
okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And we dove all throughout from Waimanalo, from Makapu, Waimanalo to Lanikai, Kailua to Flat Island, uh, even the Marine base, because my dad was in the military, right, as the Air National Guardsman, and I was too for 6 years. In fact, I remember I even took there's some good surfing spots, but like Walter and I were into body surfing. I remember taking Walter and even Duva. I took Duva to the Marine base to go body surfing. And,
Oh,
you know, so pretty much that's it. And then what's kind of strange is where Chris passed, where they found recovered his body. That used to be one of our favorite grounds for taco, and back in the day there was like choke or go, that limo that we would always get in that area,
so
you know.
Chris passed from a water accident?
Yes, yes. They believe they recovered his body in relatively shallow water. I want to say like 20 feet. And they believe maybe he had shallow water blackout, or, and then his brother Greg was saying that apparently he did have a heart condition, you know.
Oh,
And I
okay.
don't know what I found out through the um, Facebook about Zell, which is so tragic. You know, life is precious, man. We're on the back end going, so we gotta don't take nothing for granted. Just enjoy. Most of us
Yeah.
are, well, we should all be retired and everything. I'm planning, because I'm single. I'm planning at once Tyler's in, my son's name is Tyler. Once he's in college, of spending, I don't know, maybe 6 months. I'm gonna go buy um a pretty decent teardrop trailer and truck, and I want to travel the U.S., continental U.S., portions of Canada, and even Alaska if possible. Just drive, you know what I mean?
Cool idea, man.
Yeah, yeah. If I'm in Minnesota, I'll give you a ring.
Right on. So does your
You-
son have a goal or a target? Is he got a school, going to go to school or something else? Or
He's going to this small private college close. It's in Tacoma, next to McCord Air Force Base. It's called Pacific Lutheran University.
oh, okay.
And then he got scholarships from Hawaii, and his mom is a teacher, and because he's a teacher, and they don't, it's a 4-year program, but they offered him 50% off of tuition, you know.
Right on. There you
So
go.
that's what he's, between that and it's affordable. I preferred him going to either Hilo or UH. And, I'm telling him, college isn't for everyone, but he's a little bit Kolohe like his father, and I can tell he's going to party, you know. I mean, like graduation, I saw people that, from all of his school counselors to the school janitors and then students that I've never met before took the time to come and give him a lay or say hello. And, it was just so awesome to see that, you know. So he could have taken better advantage, but he
Mm,
enjoyed, and Holly Boy is so proud to be Hawaiian.
right on, man. That's,
Yeah, yeah,
you
it
know,
is. And again, all of us in our class of 75, we were all at one point, we all were at Kamehameha. And then after that, which is like now for him, he's just starting, right? We all diverge in different paths. Like, Duva's a doctor. We got attorneys. I mean, look at Crystal. That is so awesome. Crystal Rose,
he
I'm so
he
proud
is,
of her.
yeah,
Man, right on for her.
yeah, and she's recorded, ready to for me to post. But like I say, the calendar's not going to be on our side for reunion. So
Oh, yeah, I have about a week's. I'm trying to think who was the last one that I saw. But it was something, because I'm retired and stuff. It's something I look forward to seeing. I'll check it like how I check every day, It's like part of my routine now, you know. But no, seriously. And thank you so much for doing it, um, Kermit. And then here's another thing that came out. Mokulele has purchased a brand new Cessna Caravan, 208, and they refurbished another one. And apparently they're starting up their service. It's supposed to be regular scheduled service to Molokai and Lanai. And they just had a blessing and a ceremony at Kalapapa, I think yesterday or the day before,
oh, right
So at
on.
least it may work for you because you were saying on one of the video chats that you don't know about going because you don't want to get stuck in Molokai, which
Yeah,
which is a good possibility, you know what I mean? But if it's regular service and they have a new plane and they've gotten their specs up to the FAA maintenance requirements, and by all means, people don't realize the what goes uh for an aircraft to fly legally, all the maintenance that's required, that they have to follow bulletins and special,
yeah.
like with the Aloha. Unfortunately, it's when something traumatic happens, when there's loss of life, and then they start to instill or mandatory, equipment changes and so forth. So,
And what I kind of foresee is, Molokai people have been experiencing this lack of consistency with air travel. If they get these two planes in service and are regular, I mean, I bet you the usage is just going to be flooding them. You know what I mean? They're going to want to get off island and
well,
do stuff. I mean,
yeah, but and see, I don't know how it is economically in Molokai, but what's bad, in my opinion, is if there's only one airline, then they can list their price, right? Because if you have a doctor's like medical conditions on Molokai, Illinois is pretty sad, dismal, you know. And they have to go to Oahu or come to Maui, and now, you know, I'm sure if they have insurance, it'll cover a majority of it. But you look at like when Southwest came, that was
yeah.
great because Hawaiian only had, there was like $120, 119 one way. And then here comes Southwest when they first started. I believe it was like $29 one way. So naturally,
Ooh,
Hawaiian's gonna, they gotta match it, right? They gotta be competitive. And then now It's e- it's either 39 or 49 each way now to
Wow.
outer islands, which is still reasonable. And then I think because of Southwest, again, my opinion, that's why they had to merge with Alaska, which is kind of good, kind of bad,
Hmm.
you know. But competition is great for consumers, you know. And you look at the airline industry, everything is always, since I started back in the day, everything is always consolidated and merged. Like United bought out Continental, Delta merged with Northwest. The most recent one, and these are the major air carriers, U.S. Airways, Cactus bought out the American, but they kept the American name because it was more known, you know. But it was, you know, U.S. Airways that bought them out,
Yeah.
you know. So it was really interesting, you know.
I
And even like the controllers now, I really feel for them because I know what they're talking about, and I can only imagine how much more traffic they have to work because you know it's a special person that can actually do the job because you have to be able to multitask, type A. I mean, when I was flying in the cockpit, it's like, man, I should have been a pilot. You know, I mean, they have a big responsibility and so forth, but um, most of the time they're just monitoring equipment and stuff and double checking and so forth. But if the crap hits the fan, you know, that's what they train for twice a year in the simulators with a, you know, like Sully on the Hudson,
yeah.
you know, because it happens. That stuff happens. Same with Aloha 243, you know. They have catastrophic. That was unbelievable, you know.
Was there loss of life on that Aloha 243?
I believe definitely there was a flight attendant that got sucked out and maybe a passenger, but I know that flight attendant was definitely a fatality. They never found her body.
Wow.
Um, it was just shocked, you know, how so much people survived. And like every airline uh incident where it involved loss of life or damage, and the controllers would get wind of it because we have to learn too. It's just like it can happen here during our winter months, but like where you're at on the mainland, icing is a really big issue. You know, it's rare to happen here in Hawaii, maybe when we have thunderstorms and so forth. But on the mainland, it's a big thing where a plane can lose control, the ability to stay airborne because of ice that accumulates. You know, and there's been a lot of fatalities about where the plane can't recover. You know, and even like from phraseology, we're trained, you know, to do the best that we can. We have to multitask and, you know, but then when you have short staffing, which has always been the case in my entire career, I think it's worse now. And I think that the traffic has increased, the workload has increased. So it's still the safest mode of transportation. More people die in a automobile than they do, you know, in an aircraft. It's just that when something happens, it's so newsworthy, right? You know, like an example in my career, just because I spoke to this aircraft, it ended up crashing a Molokai. It was a business jet. I don't remember the year, but I did talk to the aircraft. They pulled me out off of position. I had to go get a piss test and write a statement and all that kind of stuff, you know. And but then the next day or two, you know, I was back on the job, you know.
Um, in that particular case, was it a mechanical thing or pilot error or?
No, well, Island Air had an incident, and that was when I was on Maui too. You know the volleyball?
Yeah, I remember that one. That was
Okay, so they departed. I don't want to get too technical. When planes fly, they have certain certification, let's say, and they fly under it's called Federal Air Regulation. They fly under certain parts, and a commercial airline, I believe, is under part 125, and like a private pilot is under part 91. And basically, the higher the numbers go, the more restrictive or the more requirements are required for both the aircraft and the pilot. So in the case of Princeville, they and we call them Princeville, but it was Aloha Islander. They were flying a Twin Otter, and they departed out of Maui. And what they were doing this. They were operating under what we call VFR, which is stands for Flight Visual Rules. So it's basically 3 miles visibility and clear of clouds, and it's the pilot's responsibility to see and avoid other aircraft. And what happened in that case is they were flying they were on like there's highways in the sky. They were flying a VFR on at a VFR altitude on a airway, a Victor, it's called a Victor airway. And then they went uh what they call fly this heading for 10 minutes, then we can make a turn to this heading for 10 minutes. And because the weather was marginal, they hit the mountain by Cape Palava, right?
mm,
You know, and then everyone make
yeah, because I had a female elementary classmate that
on the
perished
plane.
in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. You know, so we had to read up about the final report because they'll say what uh from probable cause to actual cause. Because sometimes the final report can take years. Like in
Wow.
my case, the one that happened for me, um pilots, just like flight attendants and even controllers, we have restrictions on how long we can work, or even how long we can drink, legally. And drugs, we only can take Tylenol, aspirin, ibuprofen, and Sudafed. That's it. Anything else, we have to get a clearance. Like we
Wow.
can't take NyQuil or anything like that. And I think pilots are that way too. You
Huh.
know, but the case with this business jet, it was it's called the Swiss cheese model. I don't know if Swiss cheese, how there's holes. You know how Swiss cheese has holes?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you have slices of Swiss cheese, and an accident isn't just one thing, it's a chain of things that happens throughout the whole course. So in this particular case, was weather a factor? Yes, it was. So that was part of the factor. But let's say weather was not a factor, then it would go through a hole. Was there a communication or equipment failure? No, there wasn't. So it would go to the next layer. But once it comes across someplace, like in this case, weather, that's what caused the crash. It's called the Swiss cheese model.
Huh.
You know, I'm sorry, I'm getting too technical.
That's okay.
No,
Behind you on your background picture, is that a family member or is that just a random photo?
during COVID,
Uh-huh.
I was a naughty boy, and I would go into Haleakala, and I would. You're only allowed at that time. You're only allowed once a month, not to stay more than 3 days. 3 nights you could spend. But I was going like 3 times a month. One time I stayed 5 days. You know, and and that's what I do now to keep my sanity. Is I volunteer at the Boy Scout camp here in Maui. I help maintain the campsite and so forth. Like we got our summer camp coming up in July, and I teach camping and wood carving merit badges.
Right on.
I help around, help maintain the camp and stuff. You know,
Cool.
so pretty much that's what's been happening or where I'm at. If Tyler doesn't want to do this, I may just stop by for a reunion because it would be good to see everybody. I know Doug's not coming. He said no. I said, you know what? Um,
Doug
he says
who?
no. Weber.
Okay.
He was a boarder too.
Yeah. No, I thought you were
You
talking
know.
about Duva again. So
Oh no. Last time I saw him was at the 20th reunion. In fact, he just had a brand new baby girl, I remember.
Doug
You
Weber?
know. No. Um, Doug is a grandpa. He's a Tutukane already. In fact, I
Wow.
think most of the classmates are all Tutukanes or Tutuainis, right?
Yeah.
So,
Either through their own actions or like Richard Bartlett,
uh,
he married into a boatload.
oh, that
Collectively
was
between him and his wife, there's like over 20, I think.
that was part of the Hawaiian culture. Hanai, like Hawaii was Hanai too. So, but that there is called in the background is Rainbow Valley.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in Haleakala. It's
Well, I
it's
was wondering if that was either you or Tyler behind you.
far away. That's Tyler.
Okay.
That's Tyler. And that's all cinder cone natural. It's so special in there. And again, one of the bennies is it's a national park, so it's like a what they call a flight restrictions. No aircraft can go in there unless like it's an emergency or whatever. But the helicopter, there's a helicopter that has a contract with the parks. So from time to time, they have to go up there and take equipment and so forth. So I had an opportunity to get in the Hughes 500 and go flying, which is, even like, Brian Konia,
Uh-huh.
he was in charge or he was the sergeant at the time with the helicopter unit at the airport. So I got
Oh.
to fly with him on Oahu, you know. So that was a good experience. It's good when you see things from that perspective. You know what I mean?
Oh, I imagine, yeah, it's got to be just
Oh
unlike
yeah,
anything you ever come close to as a civilian, you know.
yeah. I remember the first time. We constantly issue traffic advisories to avoid, or maybe we need to point out traffic because I want him or her to follow that aircraft as an example. But when you're up at altitude and you have a nose to nose situation, one of the ways you're separated is vertically. So an aircraft can be at 18,000 feet. The other aircraft is at 19,000 feet. So you have 1,000 foot separation. But I'm telling you, when they get traffic advisories and you see a little dot, that dot, because you're going head to head, it just happens so fast. I was like, wow. But you know that they're using vertical separation. You know what I mean?
But at a
I'll
distance,
never.
you can't tell, you know.
No, no. And then nowadays they have this thing called it's not TCAS. I forget what the FAA is full of acronyms. It's something that gives them a resolution. It'll tell them like climb, climb, descend, descend. Like in the terminal environment, which is where I came from, they had this thing called TCAS, Terminal Collision Avoidance System. So we would have planes, we're cleared to land, we're using our own separation standards or cleared for takeoff or whatever. And I have intersecting runways and it's an anticipation of separation. And then the pilot says, we got a TCAS or RA alert. And they do, ultimately, it's the pilot's does whatever he wants to do, he's gonna do, and we have to accept that and work around it and so forth. You know what I mean? But it
Wow.
really makes your heart skips a beat. You know, when you see that, it's like, oh shit. You
God.
know,
The is there? I mean, there's probably a lot of what do you call it? When controllers had too much with the career and just says, "I'm out of here."
I'm
You
sure
know.
that has happened. I'm sure that has happened, but hopefully the supervisor, how the system works is they DQ or they disqualify you. Like they may take you you have to see a psychologist or something. You still get paid, but and even like some not like they're talking about the trauma leave, you know, they had that incident in Newark. They never had that offered that to our controllers there, but as an example, the person who was working a law 243, he got a 2 week vacation after that incident because he was the one. We had a major thing with communication. We could not, if you know, communication is a two-way thing. We say something, the pilot repeats it back, and we're responsible. What the pilot says better be what I told him or told her to do. So it has to be effective like that. And if we expect the pilot to turn left to a heading and climb and maintain, and the pilot comes back to a wrong heading or a wrong altitude, I have to be able to catch that and correct that. Because if I don't, that's what the pilot heard, and that's what the pilot's going to do, right?
Okay.
If I turn them, you see what I mean? That's how the process works. It's like a law 243 radar departure or radar contact, turn left heading 360, climb and maintain 2000. So now tower or departure Roger lot 243 to be a right turn heading 010, climb and maintain 2000. And I'd come back. I have to come back negative. It's a left turn heading 360, climb and maintain 6000. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to catch mistakes like that. And the slightest mistake, which is we're all humans, you know, that's why there's all the air carriers will have a first officer and a captain on board. And then back in the day, they even was a flight engineer, a third person on board, you
Hmm.
know. And some of the bigger birds still have three people, like a 747, I believe, still has a crew of three, you know. I mean, let me give you an idea. You heard of Boeing aircraft, right?
Hmm.
So this is how old I am, or we are. So I flew in a 707, 717, 727, 737, 747, 757, 767, and a 777 and a 787. Not in the cockpit though. So I've been in all Boeing aircraft, you know, that's up to date now. And the 707 still flies. I mean, Hawaiian flies the 717, you know? It's
Well,
just,
I guess if they claim it, still in good shape or whatever, I don't know how that works.
oh, they have to go through routine mandatory maintenance, even like engine overhauls and stuff. And, you know, because stuff happens, you know, because there's fatigue. Every time the aircraft, they call it a cycle, it departs and lands, the thing is being crushed and expanded. So after so many cycles, they have to, you know, do certain inspections and so forth. And
Well,
like I said,
I'm amazed when I look at what we have in this world that's up in the sky. For the amount of time between the Wright brothers doing their thing and
oh
today,
yeah,
it doesn't
yes,
seem like it's that much
yes,
time.
yes.
Yeah.
In my majority of my career, there was no GPS, you know, which is like, man, everyone uses GPS now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, from search and rescue to everything is GPS. And there's so much redundancy that they still can, there's other means of navigation too. There's like triple, quadruple modes, and
Yeah.
these are the things that the pilot train, you know, they, they may in the simulator, they'll throw all kinds of things, turbulence and, everything,
Do you remember
just
on a slightly related topic for ROTC, they would send us in the forest with a map and a compass and coordinates, and we'd have to find marked signs in the forest. Did you do that for ROTC?
no. And I took 4 years of ROTC. I did not. In fact, because of that, like Kalani, I went in as a E3 like him. So we got a bump in pay, man, instead of a E1. But
You talk about
no,
Kalani Ching.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I but when you say that, I just flashed back. We had like Sergeant Nix, right?
Okay.
Do
I
you
kind
remember
of
him?
remember.
He was a old his catchphrase was diarrhea of the mouth. You know, he tried to
Yeah.
bully us with his words and so forth and yelling and typical military. And then we had Bodie, Sergeant Bodie too.
Yeah. That him I remember because I had
Yeah,
some kind of class with him, but and then the
yeah.
tap 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 of Sergeant Major Lido's shoes.
Yes, yeah. Pop, um Popolo guy, right? Yeah, he was Popolo.
Yeah, it's
And and then we had Captain Oldham, I believe, Holly guy. He was in
no,
charge of all of us. I don't know,
yeah.
you know.
It's stretching back 50 years, long time.
Yeah, yeah. And you don't know. It's amazing. At least for me, as we age, we can remember stuff like that, but I'm constantly losing my keys, Kermit. Or, or son, call my phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess that's part of aging, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if I should consider myself lucky or what I would call it, but my wife says I have undiagnosed OCD because when I come
Oh,
home, things go in a in a certain place and they always go there, like my keys and my phone and my
yeah. But see that the reason why you do that, and I do that too, is because you know where it's like my tools. I put them a certain place, so when I need them, I know where they are, right? And like your phone and your keys, you use that daily. You know what I mean?
but I get twitchy and freaked out when my stuff gets moved by somebody else,
Yeah, yeah. Like
you know.
this one, this is what happened to me a couple weeks back. I put my wallet on the top of the refrigerator, the freezer portion of it, and I don't know. We were going shopping or whatever, and I'm like, "Where's my wallet?" And I can't find it. I'm looking up. I even get a little step stool and look, it's not up there. So I check the bathroom. I check my room, the living room. Have my son come out of the car. I say double check the car between the seats, and I'm getting all frustrated and stuff. And then guess where my wallet was?
In your pocket.
No, not I'm not that bad. The the freezer door had opened and the wallet fell into the freezer.
Oh, yeah.
So now I gotta make sure I really shove it back there, right? Not on the lip or anything like that, you know. But I was like in panic mode, because you gotta think back. What was the last time I had it? You work from backwards, right?
Yeah. This is fairly recent, and I'll share it because nobody's here to laugh at me live. But about 3 weeks ago, I pull up to my house. I put my truck in park, and then I look down in my console where I usually keep my sunglasses, and they're not there. So I feel on my head, they're not there. I call work, they're not there. I'm sitting there shaking my head, and I look up in the mirror, and I'm freaking wearing my sunglasses.
And it's sunglasses, right?
Yeah.
So you
Oh
didn't
man.
notice the shade is darker or anything like that?
No, it was a
You know,
very senior moment. It scared
yeah,
me for a
yeah.
little bit, but uh
Embrace it, embrace it, embrace it, and accept it. You know, it's
yeah.
like now for me, I'll share something with you which sucks. I think it's very rare at night when I sleep. Now it's like I gotta get up and go use the restroom. What's up with that? You know, and and you know how I get over that? I still feel grateful. You know why? Because at least I'm not wearing those diapers. You know what I mean? At least I get the urge to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's part of our physiological, makeup.
Yeah. And you know,
You
I
know.
drive a school bus now, and we've got
Yes. Yes.
coach drivers who go long distance taking adults, like a
Uh-huh.
tour bus.
Yeah, because you
And
you you said you got like elementary kids or something like that, right?
yeah, I got elementary through 12, but the
Oh,
the coach drivers, in a moment of whatever unclarity or whatever, they confess that they wear diapers when they drive in case they
and
cannot pull over and
well,
get
people,
to.
there's pilots that have to wear that mandatory, like fighter jet pilots. They have. That's what they do. You know
Yeah. And then I also heard cops on stakeout wear diapers.
what?
They're in a car
Oh,
staking out
yeah,
something and they you know,
yeah, yeah,
cannot keep getting out of the car or whatever.
yeah.
I don't know.
It's no, because to me, number one, there's always that Gatorade, right, bottle. It's
Yeah.
big enough. You cannot use the regular 500 milliliter, too small. But the Gatorade, the amount at least bigger, right? I've done that before.
Then your aim
But
doesn't have to be as good, right?
right, but then number two, boy, oh, you know,
Yeah, it's tough to work around that one.
yup, yup, you know. So I hope my time is up. I've just blah 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 blah.
Hey, but I mean, I found it educational. I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Who gets to sit down and talk to an ex air traffic controller?
Well, I
You
guess you
know,
do.
there you go. And now whoever watches will too. So
Yeah, yeah.
everybody I've talked to has taught me something or revealed something that
That's
now
what
I
I mean.
know.
See, we all diverged after high school. We all went different paths, and just for that brief moment, we were all connected, right? And we
Yeah.
still are connected to a certain extent, you know, because of our past.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat.
Oh, before I
You know?
forget too, Melissa Natividad wants you to get in touch with her because she tried to reach you for some luncheon last year and she thought you had left Maui.
Oh, no, no. Okay, I don't have her contact information. You think you could text that to me?
Sure.
Okay. And then same with Kirk.
Okay.
Could you give me his number? I'd want to call, especially if I'm not going to make it to the reunion. And
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
am, it's going to be just for that Natsunoya thing, you know.
Cool.
So, hey, it's been a pleasure, and thank you
Same
for
here,
your,
man.
thank you again for what you're doing, and bringing us all together. Because, like you said, not everyone's going to be able to go, whatever the circumstances are, but it gives all of us an opportunity to, reflect back and, you know, these are the times that we cherish, right?
Yeah, and some of these conversations have sparked a memory that I enjoyed
Boy.
that I had not thought of for
Yep.
40 years,
Yep. Yep.
So,
Like
well,
I saw Doug. And what he reminded me that I didn't even think of, apparently, I wasn't even aware we were in the typing class, but I knew I was a good typer. But, I could type like a minimum 40 words per minute accurately. And he said that I'm not going to mention names, but he said he took that course because of this one Wahini, you know. But he also said that there was a competition which I was not aware of between he and I that he tried to beat me, and he did towards the end of the quarter. He was typing faster and more accurately than I was.
Huh.
And those are skills that we still use today. You know what I mean? I'm not no henpecker.
Yeah.
FDSA, JKL, SAM. It's all muscle memory, man.
Absolutely. And
You
use it or
know,
lose it kind of thing. So
yeah, yeah.
that's why I'm glad the computer has a keyboard because I stay in touch that way. But I definitely have lost that strength because we were
Oh,
learning on the electrics, but still it had a big, what do you call it? Like a drop. It's not like touch. You had to
oh,
clack, 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 clack. So your fingers were
and
actually stronger. Yeah.
that was the electric. Like we had IBM Selectric. It had a distinct sound. You know, is that what you had when you were taking typing?
I think so.
It had a ball that would go around to the letter or whatever. It, it's
Okay.
just
I
like
think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just like certain aircraft. They have a distinct sound. I without even looking, I can tell the difference between a UH-1 and a Hughes 500, or the whining sound of a C5. Or a A10 has a different sound entirely. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah,
neat
you
what
just
you
get
what you.
exposed to it
Yeah,
all the time, man.
yeah, yeah. But again, Kermit, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll
You
cross
know.
my fingers that you make it to Natsunoya's.
Okay, expect a hug if I do.
Right on. You got it, brother.
Okay,
Ahui
aloha.
ho.
Thank you. Ahui ho. Thank you. All
Yeah.
right, bye.